Hello, everyone. My name's Hank Sadala, and we got Sean Phillips sporting the Cleveland shirt today. And
What
this
is
is
up?
this is our virtual Conversations with God discussion group. So you can interact via comments by going over to the YouTube page. There should be a link in the description. And if you would like to come on live with us to interact, you are welcome to do that as well. We can send you a link. And let me just make sure my Facebook is on public because I always forget to do that. But yeah, so for those of you who have never heard about Neil Donald Walsh's work before, he wrote a trilogy of books initially called Conversations with God, and I have the book right here, and we have the virtual book that we can share on the screen here in a moment. But basically, it is a dialogue back and forth between Neil and an unseen force, source energy, God, whatever you like to call it, and it was just this back and forth dialogue. They had literally a conversation, and that's where all the work came from. Kind of like automatic writing, I think, is what you would call it today. So, yeah, how fun is that?
Very cool.
And Sean, also, though it's not CWG, you just had a foundation class.
I did. I am fresh off of a four downs because it's football. No, 4-day foundation class. It is an access consciousness class. If anybody's heard of the modality access consciousness, the foundation is like the second class that you take. After you take an access bars class, and the 4-day foundation is all about changing. It's all about change, all about changing, all about breaking your foundation, and all the things you thought were true and changing it. So I have a lot of possibilities in my world right now. It just got turned upside down. So it ought to be a very fun day today.
Yeah, and what I thought we were going to start with tonight is because on one of my other streams, Stir Crazy Shamans, I made a comment regarding forgiveness and that there's from the standpoint of oneness, there's nothing to forgive because from the standpoint of oneness, there's no right or wrong. And even Access Consciousness has a similar concept where they say true consciousness is the awareness of all that is in the absence of the judgment about it. And they have all that's what basically accesses all kinds of tools to eliminate limitation and increase possibility through the process of getting to the space of interesting point of view for pretty much everything that you look at or through.
Yeah, we'll dive into that. The parallel between access consciousness saying interesting point of view is a lot like in the trilogy here of Conversations with God, where they talk about right and wrong, and that in the eyes of God, there's no right and wrong. It's all where you're at now and what you view as right or wrong. In the great article that Hank sent me earlier, Neil clarifies it and says, in 1605, we were burning witches as a society because that was, well, it was right to burn witches and wrong for witches to be in existence. And then somewhere along the line, we stopped doing that. And instead, Neil gives an example is instead we maybe shoot the abortion clinic doctor because we don't like him. Now, I haven't heard of that actually happening, but the point is that, just because we've changed what we value as right or wrong, um, it's just a point of view, and it can change. The context of right and wrong is very, very fluid.
Right. And he puts it another way too, and I'll read the article in a moment, but what works and what doesn't work. So it's not necessarily a matter of right or wrong, but in this auspicious moment where we've decided to incarnate and have this experience in whatever country you're in, there is an agreed set upon values and things, and those values serve a certain purpose. And if you go outside of that, there could be cause and effect in terms of consequence. So though they're in the grand scheme of things from God, there's no right or wrong. There is still cause and effect based on the choices that we make that could be preferred or not preferred. Right.
Not sure I caught all that in context because
Did I get video garbly or something like that?
no. I think with cause and effect, I think that's another topic to touch on. I don't know quite how they approach that cause and effect in CWG. I know in Access it's more the ask and receive universe. that when you ask for something, you receive it. It's not cause and effect. Do you know off the top of your head where Neil and God talk about that, or?
Oh, I'd have to look it up. He looks at it like karma. Like karma isn't so much like there's a debt to pay or anything like that, but if you have an action, based on that action, there's an effect of it. So it's not so much like a penalty if you do bad things, but if you go out and murder somebody, for example, and you do that, the effect of that or what might come back is you go to jail, for example. So it's cause and effect, but not so much karma is the way that Neil uses it.
I think to me, that kind of sounds like what would you like to create? And if your choice is to, to play off you is to go and kill a bunch of people, that's going to create a certain world for you. One where you may be put in jail or put on death row or whatever that is. In the eyes of God, though, it's just a choice. It's not that you were wrong for it. It's that it was a choice.
Yeah, and I have that in the book too that I can read about. Well, maybe should we go to that first since I brought up cause and effect, and then go to the article in a moment. So let me share it here.
Yeah, if you're able to jump to it.
Yep, I can
Hopping
easily
right in today to hefty topics that are slippery to comprehend at times.
Make sure that it looks correct here. Perfect. All right. So for anyone to understand, there are laws of cause and effect which have been sufficiently outlined to your scientists, physicists, and through them to your world leaders. These laws don't need to be outlined once more here. Getting back to suffering, where do we? I think I'm in the right spot anyway.
No, I think this is me. I read Neil usually.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, wait, that was not where I was going with that, actually. I can't tell from looking at this if this is like Neil or God talking.
Getting back to suffering, where did we ever get the idea that suffering was good? That the saintly suffer in silence?
The saintly do not, quote unquote, suffer in silence, but that does not mean suffering is good. The students in the School of Mastery suffer in silence because they understand that suffering is not the way of God, but rather a sure sign that there is still something to learn of the way of God, still something to remember. The true master does not suffer in silence at all, but only appears to be suffering without complaint. The reason that the true master does not complain is that their master is not suffering, but simply experiencing a set of circumstances that you would call insufferable. A practicing master does not speak of suffering simply because a master practicing clearly understands the power of the word, and so chooses to simply not say a word about it. We make real that which we pay attention. The master knows this. The master places himself at choice with regard to which she chooses to make real. You have all done this from time to time. There is not a one among you that has not made a headache disappear or a visit to the dentist less painful through your decision about it. And master simply makes the same decision about much larger things. I think that's you, right?
It is. It is. Did you want to keep going on that, or?
No, okay, I think, is that good enough for what we were looking for?
Well, I mean, I guess I guess you don't really get a lot of detail on that cause and effect, do you?
No. Well, I just searched it. That was the first thing. So let me search it.
What's on the previous page, even?
Oh,
from that one.
Let's see. That doesn't really look what we were looking for either. Or maybe it's under karma. I don't remember. Or maybe I should just do karma. Okay, so let's go to this part then. Oops. I'm just kind of skimming through to make sure. What is the karmic lesson I'm supposed to be learning here? What am I trying to master? Okay.
You are learning nothing here.
Yeah, you have nothing to learn. You only have to remember remember me. What you are trying to master, you are trying to master mastering itself. Is there such a thing as reincarnation? How many past lives have I had? What was I in them? Is karmic debt a reality? It is difficult to believe there is still a question about this. I find it hard to imagine that there have been so many reports from thoroughly reliable sources of past life experiences that some people have brought back strikingly detailed descriptions of events and such completely verifiable data as to eliminate any possibility that they were making it up or had contrived to somehow deceive researchers and loved ones. You have had 647 past lives, since you insist on being an exact. This is your 648th. You were everything in them: a king, a queen, a serf, a teacher, a student, a master, a male, a female, a warrior, a pacifist, a hero, a coward, a killer, a savior, a sage, a fool. You have been all of it. No, there is no such thing as karmic debt, not in the sense that you mean in this question. A debt is something that must or should be repaid. You are not obligated to do anything. Still, there are certain things that you want to do, choose to experience, and some of these choices hinge on the desire for them has been created by what you have experienced before. That is as close as words can come to the thing you call karma. If karma is the innate desire to be better, to be bigger, to evolve and to grow, and to look past events and experiences as a measure of that, then yes, karma does exist. But it does not require anything. Nothing is ever required. You are, as always you have been, a being of free choice.
Yeah.
There we go. That hits a little bit closer to what I was talking about. I remember or maybe it was in one of the workshops that I remember him talking about karma and cause and effect, but I thought it was also in the book somewhere too. Page 252, and this is from a different book. Where's the karma in this one? Where is it? Skimming for it. I know I'm on the right page, location 547. We got it in here. I just don't see where it was talking about it. Do you see the word karma? Am I missing it?
No, I didn't see it when I glanced through there. So, what was it we were attempting to talk about?
Well, I went down on a tangent, but we were talking about cause and effect our initial thing was about right and wrong. So let me jump to the article now that we got my tangent totally out of the way here, kind of out of the way.
Yeah. Although we could probably talk a bit about karma and ask about it.
Sure. And if you're just joining us, if you have comments or anything like that, or if you want to join us live for the conversation, we can send you a link to join us. So please don't be shy. We normally do this in person and stream it while we have in-person participants and online participants. So there is no, you can definitely participate if you'd like.
Yeah. So if you're catching this on the recording, hello, how are you? How are you doing? How has your week been?
Yeah, and normally we do this the fourth Thursday, but we had something else last week and we had to bump it. So, what happened, Oliver? Okay, they're getting dinner ready, so they're getting mac and cheese ready to go. So I'm just curious, since they were walking through, had to ask what was going on. Yeah, but we normally do it the fourth Thursday. Just bumped it to today, so we're on our normal day. So if you're just now catching us, the way it works is you can make comments and we can interact with you. And if you feel brave and want to come online to have a dialogue, we can send you a link. You can join us on the live stream. So just let us know.
Yeah. So the topic that we started with is the idea of right and wrong, which came from one of Hank's other calls or groups that he does, Stir Crazy Shamans. Somebody had asked about right and wrong, so we're looking at that through the lens of CWG today.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit of access too.
And maybe a touch of access.
Yeah, because they do parallel each other quite nicely. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on with the idea of karma or what we were, my side reel that I started by accident?
Hello, friends. Hi,
Hello.
Mike.
Hey, Magic Mike. Good to see you, sir.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask for your awareness on karma. And I can speak to it a little bit from what I know and what I've experienced, and we read that little bit of sections there from Neil and God about karma.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's like the whole idea that you reap what you sow, right? Like if you're putting out a certain energy in the world, what comes back, it's not so much karmic, but that's why I look at it as it really is the cause and effect. I did an action, and because of that action, whatever reverberates back through the cosmos. But it's not because you're being punished or anything like that. You do an action, and there's potentially a consequence or a possibility depending on what it is and what energy you were holding when you made the choice.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like that builds up and you can always in the next moment choose something different, and there's no debt to repay or anything that's like, well, I was so bad the first 40 years of my life, I have to spend 40 years being good in order to negate all that. You just start choosing different, and all that doesn't matter. It's just cause and effect.
Yeah, you haven't like inherited this like lifetime of things that you are now obligated to do.
Right. And with past lives, it really is only the ever present moment of now. There's no thing that you have to do. Like if you were Judas in a past life, it's not like you're going to suffer in this lifetime because of that, because you were the one who turned Christ in or anything like that,
Yeah,
if you believe
and
in Christ.
sure. And I think in the one topic, God comes up to Neil and like redefines the whole definition of the word karma to kind of put like a different twist. Well, if by karma you really mean this, then yes, it exists. However, to get there, God is reframing the entire idea of what karma is. So you've got to kind of look at it from that perspective too, and step it back and look underneath and say, okay, well, what definition are you coming from when you say karma? What are you really getting at? And that's where the definition of things is interesting. It was definitely something I had experience with over the weekend in the class I took. And that definitions are very interesting. Words can mean different things to different people. So um, it's always nice to ask and get a good baseline of where you're at with a particular word. Some words are more slippery than others. And I found that karma can be one of those words.
Well, and I think everything that we talked about on the one call was all slippery words. And the thing that I sometimes forget is when, like Casey and I are talking, or you and I are talking, it maybe took me 4 years of like when that statement was first presented to me, I had a lot of charge around it. Like, what you mean there's no good or bad? What about, and one of the comments to me, what about people who murder or people who do child abuse or all those types of things? And it's not to say that you would, teach your children that that's okay, because those actions in our particular reality where we have chosen to live in the countries that we're living in, those are not preferred actions. And if you were to do those actions and there's a cause and effect, there might be a consequence. And that's still a choice. But in the eyes of God, looking at that same thing, it's only experience which you can choose to label any way you like. But it's not a quick jump to go from point A to point B. It took me, I went into quite a bit of turmoil when I first started with this over concepts like that.
Yeah, it's definitely an area that I had to get a lot of clarity on. When I started my journey really started with access. So that right and wrong stuff was some of the first stuff I had to get. I'm going to say clear on, and what I mean by that is really just letting go of a lot of the points of view I had as what's right, what's wrong, and like the significance of having to be right or having to be wrong. Even in class this weekend, there's still certain topics that I wasn't in allowance of a wrongness or a rightness on a particular topic, and it's just amazing how many places we lock up or we've taken a fixed point of view on a particular subject. And right and wrong is definitely one of those tough ones.
Yeah, and it's okay to, if you are charged around something, just having the awareness that there's a charge there. It doesn't mean that you're wrong for thinking something's wrong or right. That's why we use the tool of access. Interesting point of view that I have that point of view, and you kind of give yourself a break when you have one of those things you're charged on. Well, that's interesting that I feel that way. What can I do to work with that? And
Yeah.
it's okay to be in that space. There's no
Yeah.
judgment around that either.
and it's one of those, are you looking to change something in your life? And if you are, then whenever you have this rightness and wrongness, it's like, well, would you be willing to look at it from a different perspective or not have to take that as a rightness or a wrongness? Could you look at it as an interesting point of view? What would that create for you?
I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but I'm looking at Mike's comments, and Mike, you're all over the place, man. I don't know what to put up or what context to create around it. But if you want to give me a concise comment, I'm happy to share.
Yeah, I mean, fair warning there, Mike. It has started to rain over by me. So if you're out mowing the lawn, might want to prep to take cover in a second. Get wet. I mean, hey, if you'd like to get wet, that's a choice too.
But anyhow, if you're being introduced to these types of concepts, like for the first time right now, the first time I ever read a CWG book was like 1997, and reading the first one though gave me an immense reverberation. Wow, this is some really awesome stuff. It also was in direct conflict with everything I had been taught being raised as a Lutheran. And it created this huge conflict. And I became a professional drinker for many years and tried to medicate all this stuff away. And then finally got out of that and really started to do the work and come to a different point of view around things. But it was not an easy, it doesn't have to be hard, but for me, it was not an easy transition to get into these concepts. So give yourself some time.
I know to kind of give an example from my life with the right and wrong stuff, in high school, I had these ideas and beliefs, and this is a little bit on the political spectrum, but it's certainly an area a lot of us have a lot of charge. So I think it's a good one to bring up. I had these ideas that, the right wing conservatives like had it right, and that the left wing was like totally wrong, totally bogus, like couldn't buy it. And where I'm at now is it's not so much that I agree with left wing policy or right wing policy. It's I can look at it and go, okay, they're doing this, they're doing that. Which one seems to work with where I'm at in my life? It's not that I have to judge one or the other as terrible and wrong or that one is always right. What it's given me is a lot more sense of clarity about what's going on. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, the Republicans are doing this, okay, and the Democrats are doing that, okay, and I don't have to get caught up in all the turmoil and the drama that either party is presenting. And some of that's just letting go the points of view that one side is right and one side is wrong, and it gives you this ability to observe and not have to exhaust yourself having to defend a point of view as right or wrong. And it's just the energy I don't have to expend doing that has been so freeing. It's like, oh, I don't have to judge that anymore as right or wrong. Oh, how much energy are you using to do that?
Because if you judge it as right or wrong, you're creating that butting of the heads. There's that energy that people could be an allowance of wherever the other person is. It would create space for both sides to have a different possibility.
Yeah.
That if they're too busy arguing about what's right or what's wrong, instead of being like, well, both are just choices, it just is a whole different experience and opens up a different space if you're not in that crushing, gnashing of heads together.
Yeah. And it's like you can choose to follow one or neither or both and keep changing, but you don't have to spend all this energy trying to get locked up in defending the wherever you're at with it.
Absolutely. And so the little article that, and this is, like we said, probably one of the most controversial topics, and Neil wrote something back in 2013.
Well, controversial and I think tough to understand, or it's tough to get awareness
something that
on.
creates a lot of charge. I'll say it that way. But I'll just read this little part. This is a blog article that Neil was writing regarding this topic. So, my dear friends, one of the most controversial concepts in the messages of CWG is the idea that there is no absolute right and no absolute wrong in God's universe. The human minds find this difficult to accept. If there is no absolute right, how can we know when we are on the path to God? By what measure shall we estimate our progress, and by what determination shall we know what our actions should be in any given circumstance? How shall we create our laws? What shall constitute our values? And how shall we justify the meeting of our punishments, rather? The difficulty some people have with the no right or wrong message in CWG is that they assume the book to be saying that we need to eliminate quote unquote right and wrong from our ways of doing things. And they do not see how we can proceed with any sort of orderly society if we do that. Regarding the first assumption, they are mistaken. Regarding the second, they are correct. We cannot give our current stage of development as a species have an orderly society if we abandon our ideas of right and wrong. Yet the CWG trilogy does not ask us to do that. It does not even suggest that we would be such a thing for us. It would be a good thing for us to attempt. Indeed, it does exactly the opposite. It suggests that we hold tight to our values as long as they serve us. And I think you mentioned when you were giving your example, like what's working for you right now is just based on where you're currently at and what's going to work in your life. There is the key point. Values are only values so long as they are valuable. That is, able to be of value. We once thought it valuable to burn witches at the stake in this country, and we did so. Since then, our values have changed, and we don't do that anymore. We may shoot doctors at abortion clinics, and we may electrocute murderers, but we no longer burn witches. So one presumes our society has made a step up. The dialogue says that every act is an act of self-definition. It is precisely through our choices about what we currently call right and wrong that we define ourselves as individuals and as a society. So the CWG statement, there is no right or wrong, is not an argument for abandoning our current notions about what is right or wrong. It is an argument for being clear as to our notions are precisely that, our notions. They represent our current ideas about things. This has nothing to do with object reality. In other words, it would be inaccurate to suggest that the reason we should make these our values is because these are God's values. God has no values, in the sense that God thinks that there is one course of action is right and another wrong. God has no values. He has no preferences in the matter. She does not sit in judgment saying, you did this and I want you to do that, so now you must be punished. Repeatedly, CWG makes a statement that your will for you is God's will for you. This is difficult for many people to accept. It means quite literally that you may do whatever you wish without recrimination from the Lord. What we must do to make some sense out of this, to make some sense out of the no such thing as right or wrong message of CWG, is to decide to stop using force, economic, spiritual, physical, and emotional, in our attempts to get others to accept and adopt our point of view on things. What allows us to use such force now and to do with impunity is our thought that after all, right is on our side, and so we are justified in whatever we were doing to others to see that. And let's be clear on something, or else even this discussion would be bogged down in misunderstanding. The reason for us not using force is not to say that force is wrong. The reason to stop using force is that it doesn't work. War doesn't work. Fighting and killing doesn't work. Economic blackmail doesn't work. Not for a society which says it wishes to live in peace and harmony. CWG Book 3 makes the point that highly evolved beings, Heves, living in advanced civilizations are different from human beings in two ways. First, they observe what is so, and second, they do what works. Amongst the largest number of humans, observing what is so and telling the truth about it is not common, and doing what works is even more rare. The point here is that Heves do not have a value system based on artificial concepts such as right and wrong, but rather on what works and what doesn't work for their health, welfare, and happiness. If we applied such a rule of thumb here, everything would change overnight.
Hugs always, Neil.
Oh yeah, gotta add that.
So I'll grab two things from that. Oh, you want to leave it up?
Oh yeah, I can leave it up. Sorry.
You need so if you're catching this on the replay, what do you think of the article? Do you think Neil's right? Do you think Neil's wrong? Do you have a different awareness? Did your point of view change at all? What do you think? Drop your response in the comments afterwards. And second, towards the end of that article, I wanted to pull something where it says, among the largest number of humans, observing what is so and telling the truth about it is not common, and doing what works is even more rare. Now, that's where access consciousness is pretty cool. a lot of the tools that they offer are really about that, getting to the place of being able to observe something, which is what I kind of talked about earlier from like a political standpoint, getting to this place where you can observe both sides, see what's going on, see what's true for you, and then act on what's true for you. So I thought that was a pretty cool statement that tied parts of, what I was talking about together, and just in general, that, there is some movements out there on the planet right now that are getting more towards that.
And
I
this
think
was
Neil
7
wrote
years
this in
ago. Yeah.
2014, 13,
2013, 7 years ago.
2013. So, there's definitely been some changes in the last 7 years, which is awesome.
A few changes in it.
Yeah. So what did you have to talk about from the article, Hank? Anything?
No, I thought the article really put things together well, that it's what works and what doesn't work. And like, if you eat sugar every single day, is that going to work out for your body? Like, or is it, if you just ate ice cream all the time or something like that? It's not that it's a right or wrong, it's just a choice. But at the end of the day, does that work or does it not work? And it's making your choices based on that, and what society you're in. There's a lot of collective things that work and don't work based on where you decided to incarnate, what country you're in. There's still places in the world where they would burn a witch at the stake, possibly,
Right.
So in that place, well, maybe it's a choice to practice something like that or not, and be defined by it. That was the other thing I really liked, how it was talking about all your actions. They're really expressions of who you're choosing to be in the moment.
Yeah, and that's a huge concept. It's like it's the silliest thing. Like, you get was it Gandhi saying, "Be the change you'd like to see in the world"?
Yeah, I think
It's
so.
kind of what Neil's saying here is like, whatever you're being or whatever you're choosing, that's what gets created for you.
Right. I think this isn't directly in the article, but one of the things that up until recently, where people are really starting to wake up, people just weren't really consciously choosing anything. They were just on autopilot.
Yeah.
A cog in the machine,
autopilot.
going to work, working for the man, coming home, not even remembering their drive home because they weren't even the ones driving. Autopilot was driving. And with the pause button being pushed on the world because of the whole pandemic and everything, I think it's kind of stirred a lot of people to start being more aware. And at least that's my hope. And what's going to come out of this is people making choices that are expressing where they would really like to see themselves being, instead of being human doings, like shifting into that human beingness.
Yeah. So I think for anybody listening or tuning in later, how often do you go onto autopilot and somebody asks you, how was your day at work, or what happened, and you're like, I don't know. I don't even know. It's like that's when you have the autopilot going. It's like when you find somebody asking you like how something went, and you're just like, you have this like blank in your head. You're like, I don't know, I just did it. It just happened. That's when you have that autopilot response, and you're not quite engaged, with what's going on. So if you're looking for kind of like what that might look like, it's kind of those times. At least that's my awareness on it. Is like, you get this, when do you catch yourself doing this? I don't know, when somebody asks you how something went or something like that. So does anybody watching this notice anything like that?
Yeah, possibly drop a note in the comments. We can always speak to it next time. And if you are watching this real time and like to comment, we can definitely bring up the comment and speak to it. Like we had Mike telling us he was mowing his lawn. Whatever you want to share, you can bring up, and we'll be happy to speak to it.
What is Neil? What do Neil and God have to say about mowing the lawn? Do they have anything?
Ooh, let me see if there's anything. That's kind of a random thing to search for, isn't it? So let's see, mowing the lawn.
It wouldn't be the first thing I'd probably
zero. Yeah, zero. Wait, let's see, just the word lawn. Anything? No. He doesn't talk about mowing the lawn at all. Apparently, it's not in God's agenda to mow the lawn.
Okay. What about squirrels?
Squirrels. Oh, I gotta grab the spelling because I'm gonna misspell it. Or you tell me how to spell it. Go.
It's got a Q in it.
SQU.
R.
No, there's nothing. Even SQU doesn't come up. Any other random words we want to check for? How about random?
Well, there's probably a few
Oh, yeah.
mentions of random.
Yeah,
Probably a
well,
lot.
there's four. There's four things mentioning random.
So looks like we do have a comment in the chat here.
Oh, let me go back. It says people are now, I believe, more open to this God's will, not ours. It's meant to happen, especially because of the pandemic. Evaluation of life isn't for living in the moment. You hear it more often now.
Evaluation of life itself for living in the
Oh,
moment.
gotcha.
You hear it more often now. Yeah. Yeah. How much of that has changed with the COVID and being more present and
Well, also the world interconnectedness, like seeing how the entire world is affected and brought to a standstill, like it shows more than ever how interconnected we are as a species and a community, and what would it take to have us start actually working together as a community to create more change and possibility.
And how much have you or people around you, when we kind of hit this, we kind of just we just had a break in like the regularly scheduled autopilot programming of like, that all stops, and how many of us had to stop and then basically step back and reevaluate, like, what do I do? Like, we actually have had to engage our brain molecules a little bit and go, what do we do? Like, wait, this is closed now, and I'm working from home now, and my routine's all scrambled. Like, how much have we had to change and adapt that we haven't had to change and adapt like that in years or decades in some cases, where all of a sudden our structure that keeps our autopilot on just basically broke. It's just like no more autopilot, and how many of us were left with like,
I don't even know how to live anymore.
I have to manually pilot the automobile of my life now for at least a week until I figure out how to put that on autopilot. It's like you have this week of having to actually manually drive the automobile of your life, and it's like, how cool is that we've been able to experience that type of change.
And hopefully they don't just go to Netflix and veg out, right? Did you catch the meme that I made for COVID? Like Spirit gave me an acronym for it.
I have not seen said meme.
Boom! I'll put it up as soon as
I'm hoping this means we're going to get it.
Yeah, there we go. So what if it's the Earth's way of making us stop for a moment to COVID? Create opportunities via intuiting divinity. And a cool little picture of the world, of course. So what kind of world could we create if we were all actually in touch with the divine? How much fun would that be?
Probably too much fun. And
yeah, so definitely don't do
probably more fun than anybody that's tuning in would be willing to have.
Yeah, what would it take for you to prove Sean wrong?
Yeah.
And have all that fun. Yeah, but if you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment, or if you want to come live on the stream with us to interact, we can send you a link to do that too, as long as you promise to behave, not say we're wrong.
Yes.
I'm saying that very jokingly.
Thank you. What is this? Hoennis Divine for your comment.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate that.
I'm choosing to pronounce the V like a W, like the Romans.
She said that, or he's. Well.
Oh, that was me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, fun fact for the day. In Latin, you pronounce the letter V, like Victor, like a W.
I did not know that.
So like Weni Witty Wiki is Veni Vidi Vici, but you pronounce it with W. So anytime you see that phrase, I came, I saw, I conquered, it's really Weni Witty Wiki.
Anything else on the article, or I can switch back to my random finding in the trilogy book?
Oh.
No. Okay. So let me bring that.
I was able to share my fun fact for the call, so
now you're good.
I try and squeeze one in every day.
Okay, so let me bring Cloud Reader up. And it looks like we had another comment too. Let me go to that.
We do.
So they said PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, people have to do this all the time. Reevaluation in regards to my comment. And one thing too with PTSD, there is Paul's on there. Cool. He's walking
Hey,
in the
Paul.
park. Thank you for listening, Paul. If you were at home, you could totally be. He's been like walking 9 miles a day, so he's like giving his body a chance to get a little
Cool.
movement and meditation for the body here. But with PTSD specifically, like in Access, there's like energy flows and things to help people like get out of that well-trodden wagon wheel rut and choose differently. So there's a lot of different things you can do, like not only just consciously reevaluate, but some energy work can go and do a lot of things. And we'll put up Paul. Thank you, Paul, for tuning in and spending your walk listening to us talk about Neale Donald Walsch.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the
What are
next
we doing? Where are we going?
On the next page, he talks about randomness, which is what I brought this up. I was just going back a paragraph, so it was completely out of context. So it says, "Therefore, bless every person and condition, and give thanks. Thus you affirm the perfection of God's creation and show your faith in it. For nothing happens by accident in God's world, and there is no such thing as coincidence. Nor is the world buffeted by random choice or something you call fate. If a snowflake is utterly perfect in its design, do you not think the same could be said about something as magnificent as your life? But even Jesus healed this." Oh, wait, that's your part, right?
Yeah, but even Jesus healed the sick. Why would he heal them if their condition was so, quote, perfect?
Jesus did not heal those he healed because he saw their condition as imperfect. He healed those he healed because he saw those souls as asking for healing as part of their process. He saw the perfection of the process. He recognized and understood the soul's attention. Had Jesus felt that all illness, mental or physical, represented imperfection, would he have not simply healed everyone on the planet all at once? Do you doubt that he could do this?
No, I believe he could have.
Good. Then the mind begs to know, why did he not do it? Why would Christ choose to have some suffer and others be healed? For that matter, why does God allow any suffering at any time? This question has been asked before, and the answer remains the same. There is perfection in the process, and all of life arises out of choice. It is not appropriate to interfere with choice, nor to question it. It is particularly inappropriate to condemn it. What is appropriate is to observe it, and then to do so whatever might be done to assist the soul in seeking and making a higher choice. Be watchful, therefore, of the choices of others, but not judgmental. Know that their choice is perfect for them in this moment now, yet stand ready to assist them should the moment come when they seek a newer choice, a different choice, a higher choice. Move into communion with the souls of others, and their purpose, their intention will be clear to you. This is what Jesus did for those he healed, and with all those whose lives he touched. Jesus healed all those who came to him, or who sent others to him, supplicating for them. He did not perform a random healing. To have done so would have been to violate the sacred law of the universe. Allow each soul to walk its path. I like that. Cool.
Yeah, really good
that was a very
here.
Good random thing.
Yeah. Just talking about random.
Yeah, we found that in the book literally by searching for the word random because we were talking about random Latin things, so why not?
Yeah.
Very cool. But if you have thoughts on that, feel free to comment, or if you like to
feel
come
free
on,
to jump in.
let us know. And if you're catching this on the replay, you can make comments in the YouTube video, and then we can speak to that on our next live stream. We will do CWG. I think there might be one more time we have to bump it to a Tuesday, but for the most part, we do it on the fourth Thursday. Oh, see, I can't even know what day it is because
the
every day is kind of
second Tuesday of the month.
Oh, speaking of that, one of my favorite days of the year is coming up. May the 4th be with you. Absolutely.
Be with you. I get it because it's Star Wars.
Yes, I love it.
And if anybody knows, I have worn Star Wars shirts several times on these calls.
And also, while we're talking about other calls, next Thursday would be the first Thursday of the month, so we will typically do a bars class or have a bars clinic or whatnot. And in lieu of that, we may be online doing another thing like this, or other people will be, because I think I have a class that day now.
Yeah, probably something to do with Access, probably to do with Access bars.
Yep. So we're all about that. Or if there's any other topic you want to see, let us know. And if it's not on this, we do a Stir Crazy Shaman thing every day with me and my buddy Casey, and we are all over the place with different topics. Tomorrow's topic is energy healing, if you want to catch it. So cool. So if you're watching, if you have anything you want to contribute, please make a comment. Otherwise, Sean, where do we go next?
Well, I think I had some observations about the section we just looked at, and
cool.
I thought it might be nice to talk about this a little bit, maybe ask some questions about it, beat it up a bit.
Sure. What part did you want to focus on? And I'll kind of highlight it here.
So, but even Jesus healed the sick.
This part here.
No, it's down at the bottom. Why would Christ choose to have some suffer and others be healed?
Okay.
So kind of this section.
Okay.
So I just wanted to bring the parallel to some of the access verbiage that's similar to this topic. That's maybe the I want to say modern, but just language that's maybe a little bit more in the now of 2020 and not 19. What year did Neil do this one? 1990.
Oh, you're talking about the book itself when it was written?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
80s, 90s.
A while ago.
Not quite.
May 2005. Oh, wait, no,
Okay.
It's before that. Nope, it's before that. That was 10 years later. So 1995, he actually wrote it. I'm not sure when the book was published. But on the legal pad, it had been written by...
So about 1995. So we've come about 25 years up from that. So, the words that are in vogue are different, and as many things warrant to changing all the time, such as the nature and beauty of language. So kind of the way Access Consciousness puts this is people can't receive what they're not willing to receive. So, Christ, in this sense, Jesus, has this great capacity to heal people and create miracles. However, if the person that would be healed isn't really ready to receive that healing, it won't work. That person isn't in a place where they're really willing to accept or be an allowance of that type of possibility. So to me, that's kind of the bridge of the language here, where it's like that's what Neil and God are talking about here, or God is saying to Neil here is like, even though Christ had this capacity, he was also aware that people have to walk their own path and receive it when they receive it, and be willing to choose it when they're ready to choose it. Even though it's a possibility that's available, in a broader sense for them in their world, it isn't at the present time. So
I like it. It comes down to that one last line at the very bottom: allow each soul to walk its path. And it reminds me of the word sin. If you don't know the origins of the word, it was an archery term, and it literally means to miss the mark. And for each person on their path, if you see what they're doing and in your observation, they aren't making necessarily the higher choice, you're not knowing what they're aiming at. And so only the person actually walking the path and making the choices knows what direction they're going in, and ultimately what their targets are or their goals are. And if you're imposing judgments upon that, you don't really know what their end goal is, but they're making 100% the right choice at that moment for that soul's path.
Yeah. And part of that would be, they're firing the arrow. Is that not part of the process that you have to shoot? You have to choose, you have to, have some sort of target to go after.
Well, you don't actually. That's what causes a lot of people.
You don't have to choose.
You can choose not to choose, and that's a choice. But my point is, like, you don't have to have a target or a goal, and you won't go anywhere. And that until you choose something different, and then of course you will. But there's nothing you have to do, including choose, except for not choosing as a choice. So it's kind of a paradox, but you take my point, I hope.
I think that started to fold in on itself a little bit.
Well, paradoxes normally do.
Well, I'm not sure I would have said that's a paradox. That was I didn't quite get that one, Hank.
Well,
I sort of got it.
the thing is,
I
like
sure
in
felt
life,
light.
you don't have to make any particular choice or go any particular direction. You could choose not to choose, and that itself will bring different experiences. If you don't choose to ever go out and get a real job, or to go to school, or like to not choose is a choice because you're choosing not
Well,
to do something.
you could say I'd be maybe arguing semantics here, but by
Go
not
for it.
making a choice, are you making a choice?
Exactly.
Can
That's
you
what I
ever
said.
not make a choice, even if you're saying you're not going to make a choice? Like,
But in terms of like firing the arrow, you could just hold the bow forever and not make a shot. And my point is that if you don't make an actual choice to create a momentum in your life, then that's okay too. It's just you might not have the range of experiences you could have had if you were just shooting arrows and seeing what would happen based on the choices that you were making.
yeah, I think that was closer.
There you go. I hit the mark almost.
Yeah, you were close on that one. You almost got the apple.
Yeah. Instead, I hit some poor guy in the forehead. Oh no. I'm going to
No.
judge myself for that one.
Yeah. The joke is that you're the guy with the apple on his head. So.
Oh, I wonder. Let's see. Now that brings up original sin. Well, that might be a fun thing to get into. I just thought I would type in sin and see what came up.
Yeah, don't have sex.
Uh-oh. Is that what
That's
it
where it
says
all
there?
went wrong, according to the Bible.
I thought it was about eating the apple off the tree.
Well, they ate the apple and then they had sex. Isn't it something like that? It's been a while, all right.
Yeah, I got
They ate
real
the
familiar.
figs on the forbidden fruit. Yeah, that.
This book addresses most of all the questions we have ever asked about life and love, purpose and function, people and relationships, good and evil, guilt and sin, forgiveness and redemption, the path to God and the road to hell, everything. It directly discusses sex, power, money, children, marriage, divorce, life, work, health, and the hereafter, the before now, everything. It explores war, peace, knowing and not knowing, giving and taking, joy and sorrow. It looks at the concrete and the abstract, the visible and the invisible, the truth and the untruth. You could say that this book is God's latest word on things, although some people might have a little trouble with that, particularly if you think that God stopped talking 2,000 years ago. Or that if God continued communicating, it was only with the holy men, medicine women, and someone who had been meditating for 30 years, or good for 20, or at least half decent for 10, none of which categories include me. I think actually this is part of what Neil's talking about. This must be at the beginning. Is this page 15, it says? Page 15 to 74. Well, yeah, like, so this is like the very beginning when he's
It's part of
talking
the
about
intro.
yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Probably not the biggest context of things.
Although I do get that original sin is it's a pretty hefty topic. We might talk about it. That might be fun.
Yep. So I jumped to page 53, 54. It's talking about original sin. All thought is creative, and no thought is more powerful than original thought. That is why this is sometimes also called original sin. Original sin is when your first thought about a thing is an error. That error is compounded many times over when you have a second or third thought about a thing. It is the job of the Holy Spirit to inspire you to new understandings, which you can free yourselves from your mistakes.
Are you saying that I shouldn't feel bad about the starving children of Africa, the violence and injustice in America, the earthquake that kills hundreds in Brazil?
There are no shoulds or shouldn'ts in God's world. Do what you want to do. Do what reflects you. Do what represents you as the grander version of yourself. If you want to feel bad, but judge not, and neither condemn, for you know not why a thing occurs, nor to what end. And remember you this: that which you condemn will condemn you, and that which you judge will one day become. Rather, seek to change those things or support others who are changing those things, which no longer reflect your highest sense of who you are. Yet bless all, for all is the creation of God through life living, and that is the highest creation. Or is this still Neil? No, that's you now.
Oh, I was reading the comments.
Oh, there's a comment.
Yeah, where are we? Where were we in the passage here?
I was right at. I just finished reading on the second column. Yet bless all. So you're
Yeah.
on. Could we?
Could we just stop here for a moment and let me catch my breath? Did I hear you say there are no shoulds or should nots in God's world?
That is correct.
How can that be? If there are none in your world, where would they be?
Indeed, where?
I repeat the question. Where else would shoulds and should nots appear if not in your world?
In your imagination.
But those who have taught me all about the rights and wrongs, the do's and don'ts, the shoulds and shouldn'ts, told me all those rules were laid down by you, by God.
Then those who taught you were wrong. I have never set down a right or wrong, a do or a don't. To do so would be to strip you completely of your greatest gift, the opportunity to do as you please and experience the results of that, the chance to create yourself anew in the image and likeness of who you really are, the space to produce a reality of higher and higher you based on your grandest idea of what it is of which you are capable. To say that something, a thought, a word, an action is wrong would be as much to tell you not to do it. To tell you not to do it would be to prohibit you. To prohibit you would be to restrict you. To restrict you would be to deny the reality of who you really are, as well as the opportunity for you to create and experience the truth. There are those who would say, I have given you free will, yet those same people claim that if you do not obey me, I will send you to hell. What kind of free will is that? Does this not make a mockery of God, to say nothing of any sort of true relationship between us?
Well, now we're getting into another area I wanted to discuss, and that's this whole business about heaven and hell. From what I'm gathering here, there is no such thing as hell.
There is a hell, but it's not what you think, and you do not experience it for the reasons you have been given.
What is hell?
It is the experience of the worst possible outcome of your choices, decisions, and creations. It is the natural consequence of any thought which denies me or says no to who you are in relationship to me. It is the pain you suffer through wrong thinking. Yet even the term wrong thinking is a misnomer, because there's no such thing as that which is wrong. Hell is the opposite of joy. It is unfulfillment. It is knowing who and what you are and failing to experience that. It is being less. That is hell. That is hell, and there is no greater for your soul. But hell does not exist as a place you have fantasized where you burn in some everlasting fire or exist in some sort of everlasting torment. What purpose could I have in that? Probably a good spot to reflect a bit, because that was a lot already.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, and you want to speak to that first, or shall we do the comment?
Well, the comment pulled a lot of my attention.
No, let's throw out the comment and we'll circle back. So it says, so why heal me in a miraculous way? I thought to show others what can be done if you believe, but only by his will, not mine. I feel from this I will not be in search of why. Wiser choice for eternity. Thank you for the comment.
Yeah, I find a lot in that. That's a very neat comment. Thank you.
I think I have to read it one more time to really let it sink in. So why heal me in a miraculous way? I thought to show others what can be done if you believe, but only by his will, not mine. I feel from this I will not be in search of why. Wiser choice for eternity.
Yeah. So I think in that comment, Jovenus, divine, it to me it sounds like it's at least after the question, it's talking from the point of view of Jesus, saying, I thought to show others what can be done if you believe, through God's will, not his. Which I think goes back to when we were talking about the section with Christ a little bit ago, but when we found the randomness.
Okay. And really, with Christ and healing too, I think he was just being him and doing what he does. And if people were ready to receive and witness that and have it be an impact and change their life, then they did. And those who didn't still didn't, because people do what they do no matter what they perceive, it seems. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the energy there is that there's a brilliance in also showing what people what is possible when they are willing to receive.
Yeah, like having a magical moment that you can never not, like you can't unknow it if you were to witness it. And even if you weren't ready to receive it, it's there planting the seed for change.
Because even if you were somebody observing the miracle that took place, perhaps you were not willing to receive it before you saw it happen, and then you could have your reality shift entirely when you see that something like that is possible. You know, once you see it, it's like, oh, I could choose that. You mean that's available? Like, oh, well, I'll have some of that.
Absolutely. Like once you see it, then it's like, well, what could I do in my world to create that? And maybe it's
so that there definitely is some brilliance in that. I don't think, at least when I was speaking to it, I don't think I adequately acknowledged there. So thank you for bringing that up, Johannes. I did not acknowledge that part of the healing aspect that Jesus did there, and the possibility it can create for others.
Absolutely. And if you're just joining us or catching this on the replay, feel free to, if you make a comment now, we can interact with you. If you're catching it on the replay, make a comment, and in the next CWG discussion group, we can catch that. And if you're watching and you want to come on and be on the live stream to ask a question, we could provide that opportunity as well if you want to, and we can send you a link to join us. Very cool.
Yeah. So maybe we want to jump to the part that we just read.
Yeah. Was there a particular thing that stood out to you to expand upon a little bit?
Are you on the first page we read?
No,
or
yeah, I got to go back.
Maybe flip back.
Yep.
So I think maybe before they started talking about hell would be.
How about this little guy? Because it talks about who you really are. To say that something, a thought, a word, an action is wrong would be as much to tell you not to do it. To tell you not to do it would be to prohibit you. To prohibit you would be to restrict you. To restrict you would be to deny the reality of who you really are, as well as the opportunity for you to create and experience the truth. Ooh, I actually have a highlight button. Look at that. Oh, look at that. I can highlight
it. There it is. I was waiting for it. I knew we could do better than just the cursor highlight.
I know. Like, what else is possible? This just totally changed our whole life.
We probably can choose a color, too. But
oh, man. Cool. Yeah.
I'm good with
choose a color?
Oh, yeah.
This
is
awesome.
There's like pink and green and probably orange and purple and lavender.
How does it get any better than that?
Periwinkle.
Lavender. Very good. Well, there, the highlighted part is the first part we're kind of speaking to. What do we want to talk about for that? Or we can just skip right over that. I could have just read it again.
No, that wasn't. Did we start on the page before this even?
Yeah, there was just a little bit to create context before that first paragraph. So I started here. But those who have taught me about all the rights and wrongs, the do's and don'ts, the shoulds and shouldn'ts, told me that those rules were laid down by you, by God.
Yeah. So that's the part that jumped out for me. I mean, if we kind of go to the next page, this whole idea of, have you ever looked at where you're looking at something is right and wrong? And where did you get that belief from? Like, does it stem from your parents? Does it stem from your education? Does it stem from a conversation you had with, your church pastor? Does it come from some other event in your life? And is the information that they were given on the topic true? So did you really start with, I'm doing air quotes, like accurate or on the mark, information about a topic, which is God had that passage earlier, or that piece earlier, where he was saying, to sin is to basically start with a misassumption about something, and then you keep buying that as the truth, and then you kind of end up with this even further compounded, twisted, like false assumption that's created this reality that isn't true. Like the true truth.
Right.
The word is the word, I think is how they would say that. That isn't the word. So I think that's a nice parallel to bring it back to other parts of the book that we've read.
Yeah, I kind of jokingly will tell people that I'm a recovering Lutheran because of all the rules and everything that was wrong and everything that you could go to hell for and all that stuff. It took a long time to unprogram all that. I think we call that like implants, and just anything that you aligned and agreed with when you were little isn't really your own original knowing about something, or are you just taking somebody else's judgment as true for you?
Yeah, and getting down a bit of Access, maybe a little more advanced. So highly encourage you to check out an Access Bars class, and if possible, maybe a foundation class. We do host some here at up in Cleveland at Holistic Health and Healing. And you can check out a lot of Access Consciousness information on their website, which is accessconsciousness.com. Part of what they talk about there is that when you buy the lie, if somebody just lies to you and you don't realize that they lied, and you just take it at face value as truth, now you're basing your reality on something that was never true to begin with. So how can you truly create, something that is, in God's world, in God words, the word? How can you create the word if what you've bought as true is not the word?
Right. Or to put it, to give an analogy that my friend Pram uses when he's giving this one example in his talks, he'll get a whole bunch of pairs of glasses from the audience. And he's like, so if I believe this, now I'm looking at this through the lens of something. And so if you have all these different lenses on and they're all different colors and different shades, when you're looking at the world, are you really looking at it as just the observer of what is? Like in that one passage we were talking about, we very rarely, and at least back in 2013 when he wrote the article, we rarely just look at things as what is so. We're always looking at it, not always, but a lot of us look at it through the filters of whatever we were taught something is. And to remove those filters is to start looking at the world from the point of the observer.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things that when you really tap into the energetics of what's going on, and when you really tap into the energy of what God's talking about here, is that God also is not in judgment if you choose to put on filtered lenses and glasses. That's part of the process as well. So, you're coming from this place of, there's all these rules, all these rights, all these wrongs, all these shoulds, all these shouldn'ts, do's and don'ts. And it's like, even though that isn't, God's truth and what he puts out, it's also in God's awareness or God's beingness that's okay, because we have free will, and every soul is on his own path, his or her own path, on their own path. So it's kind of this interesting awareness to have that, what would it be like if you tapped more into the true energy that's being presented from God here in CWG?
What kind of world would that look like?
Yeah.
And what choices would you make with that awareness if you had the awareness of it?
Yeah, and how much of the rights and the wrongs and the shoulds and shouldn'ts in your world wouldn't necessarily exist or would be different if you took the point of view of God here? Would you be okay taking the point of view of God?
I would do spiritual progress, not perfection. Every day I aspire to that, working on that.
To take the point of view of God?
Well, to take the point of, to be really in that space all the time where you can look at the whole world without any filters at all. And even when you think you get rid of all the filters, and all of a sudden you realize you still have a charge in something, and there's there's another filter to look at. So every day I look to, as much as possible, look through that kind of lens, or no lens, I should say, until I find that I have something else to work on and heal, or to get facilitation on.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. I was going down some line of, I'm going to say, perverted, twisted logic, but it's like, how much have you been told, or I know I've gotten it, like where it's like you have to filter you have to filter out the noise. Filter out this, filter out that, right? It's you have to get to focus on a certain thing. And how much what would it look like if you actually if you did the opposite and started like unfiltering things so that you would actually see things from a observer perspective rather than through the lenses of the filters you've put on?
What would it look like?
What would it
would it
look
take
like?
to do that? It would look pretty awesome, I think. Or would
Probably
there
look
be
different.
definitely different? Yeah, that's something really to ponder on, because there's like going back to the article that we had read at the beginning, with the values of what we define as right and wrong in the context of the duality of the experience that we're choosing. We find value in those. We find them valuable, those values, and making choices based on that. So to say that no filters are appropriate isn't necessarily, that could be missing the point too of what you are here to experience. Maybe the filters are okay. There's no judgment, like you said, about having those filters and looking at the world through a certain way. There's not a judgment from God that that's a wrongness either.
Yeah, and as we're playing with this unfiltering idea, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to your awareness there, Hank. Yeah, it's like if you have the filters on, that's okay too. At least what I'm asking, and I think what Hank you're bringing up is just to point out, what would it be like, or have you noticed that you have a choice to, take the filters out or put them back on? Like, have you even noticed that you have the filters and that you could
Right.
have a choice to either keep applying them or take them off?
Right. And for that, yeah, that's said it very well. I can't improve on that. And the filters could have very good purpose. It's just a matter of having the awareness that the filter is there, that gives you choice, and you can choose to have it on or off.
Yeah.
That's really the magic behind it. Because if the filter is serving you for whatever you're choosing to experience, by all means use the filter and create more with it and what you're looking to experience in this life.
Yeah. Well, the nice part then, if you're aware of the filter then, and you say you choose to have it on, it's like you can also then have the choice to turn it off if it no longer serves you.
Yeah.
And that's also, really where the power or the potency is.
Yeah. And looking through the filter with the awareness that it's a filter always gives you the space to choose different, because because you know about it, you're no longer unconscious of it, and you're in your space of choice.
Yeah, you're like no longer subservient to it.
Yes, exactly. Because how many people look through those filters and and here's the other difference. If you have the filters on, and you're not aware of it, because of the filters, you are reacting in a lot of your experiences instead of taking action or instead of responding. Mm-hmm. And those are the things where it's like, well, that what I just did there doesn't really. My chair just kind of did a weird thing. But anyway,
yeah,
you're in that reaction mode instead of responding mode, which is an entirely different energy to be
in. Yeah, and it is this like measured. It is this measurable thing that I'm going to say scientists. I can't remember the field and I can't remember the name of the researchers who have looked at this phenomenon, and it has to do with like test scores. So like people who like say you have a class and you give them a test, and then you have not normally you have people that do well and you have people that do poorly. We say smart kids and dumb kids. Take that for what it's worth.
With no judgment.
With no judgment, Anyways, that's
okay.
That's kind of the typical, where they come from in these types of studies, right? Smart kids, score well. Dumb kids don't score well. There's a million reasons of points of view about that. Anyways, not the point. Point is like what they observed is that the students who would score higher, when they were asked like, well, how much do you know about this topic, they would tend to say they could know more, right? That because they have this awareness that it's a lot broader than what they know. So like the awareness they have is like, they scored well and they understand this much of the topic. However, they have the awareness that the topic's like this big, that they get. It's like, they scored well. There's a lot more to know though, compared to kids or students who scored lower would actually say that they thought they knew a lot about a topic, even though they scored poorly. And part of it has to do with they don't necessarily have the awareness that the topic is this, way this big, right? They're thinking that the topic is like this big, and they're here, so they think they know like most of it, and it's like the reality is that it's this big. So what would it be like to take off those lenses of, I'm going to say scoring poorly, and rather come out of that to look and see from a larger perspective what's actually happening? What would it be like to have the choice of choosing which lens to look through, if you'd choose to?
I like that. Very cool. If you're just joining us or catching this on the replay, you can always make comments. We'd love to respond to you and take your contributions or questions. And if you are watching on the replay and you make the comment on the YouTube channel, we will speak to your questions the next time around. But if you're watching live, you can speak to it right now if you have a comment or a contribution around the topic or any question. It doesn't have to be relevant to what we're talking about right now. That's the beauty of these dialogues, especially when we have it in person. Our conversation can go in so many different directions. So there's no rules around what you can and can't ask and where the conversation can go. Okay, cool. So what else? We got a couple more minutes left. Was there something else on this page that we wanted to kind of touch on?
Well, I feel like I spoke my part on this. Did you have anything else to add there, Hank?
No. Well, I had my. Let's see. Was there anything else that I wanted to?
I mean, we could talk about hell.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing that was kind of resonating or to speak about. So let me highlight this. Highlight. I didn't make the color change. Oops. What I do? Oh no. Hell is the opposite of joy, and one reason that this stands out is in Access, one of the videos, it says that joy is your natural state. Joy is your natural state, and the hell is the opposite of joy. It is unfulfillment. It is knowing who and what you are and failing to experience that. It is being less. That is hell. There is none greater for your soul.
Ooh. Isn't that a cooker?
Yeah, that's has a lot of energy behind it. All the times I read this book, I don't think that little statement there has ever impacted me or really called out to me the way that it is right now.
Yeah,
hell is the opposite of joy. Wow.
Yeah, let's ask about this a little bit and sit here, because that's quite a doozy. I mean, it really lays it out there for you.
Yeah, I'm going to read it one more time. Hell is the opposite of joy. It is unfulfillment. It is knowing who and what you are and failing to experience that. It is being less. That is hell, and there is none greater for your soul. Wow.
Yeah. So do you want to say that 3 times? Hell is the opposite of joy.
Hell is the opposite of joy. Hell is the opposite of joy. Hell is the opposite of joy.
Whew, and all that. Everything underneath it. Woo.
And clearing statement in my head. Wow. That is really something. I never really thought of that. But having been in that space, like I remember having deep knowings as a child, and then as I was going through my addiction of alcoholism, like knowing that there's all this possibility and not experiencing it, it was quite. We also got a oh my. Yeah.
Oh my, yeah, that's nice way to sum that up. Yeah.
But just thinking about like when I was drinking and everything, trying to like knowing all that possibility was there and being completely miserable and not experiencing it, that was my the opposite of being fulfilled. That was my hell when I was in that, and it took getting to a point where I guess they say you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, where you are so fed up with being in that space of hell that you reverberate to the universe. Change needs to happen now. I'm choosing change now, and then everything can change overnight. That's how it was for me. The next day after that happened for me, everything started to unfold in whole different ways, and my life has been a rocket ever since. Just from that one time, basically letting God in. It's like where the real hell of it is when you recognize or realize yourself as separate from everything else. That there's no unity. It's not the kingdom of we like they talk about in Access. Like you're just recognizing yourself as being apart from everything else, and in that context, it takes away a lot of your potency as a creator, because you're creating with only one millionth of the totality of God instead of being recognizing the oneness of it. At least for me, like thinking about it.
Yeah, and it's just it's just like, wow, what if part of what we're really here to do and be is to be joy and to have joy? I mean, isn't that paradigm just like it's just amazing. It's just like, wow.
But if you're not experiencing joy, there's no wrongness to that either. There's another book by Neil. We could probably do a whole series on it. It's called A Home with God, A Life That Never Ends, and it's all about what happens after death and everything. And basically, it says you choose whatever you're choosing until you choose different. And so if you're not choosing lightness and joy and all that, that will be experienced until you really have that congruency of the totality of your being to choose something different, because you're not going to choose that hell anymore, and you're going to demand it to the universe that you're going to have a different experience, and then the universe is happy to finally show you.
And when you go to, so as I'm going to this, I'm going to this place of joy right now. I'm going to this place of joy, and it's like you start going there. I'm going there, and it's like, yeah, it's really cool. And then there's also this underlying, like, we're taught to label it as this nervousness or this fear, like, oh my God, like I'm not sure what's going to happen if I keep going towards this. And it's not really this fear as much as it's an excitement of like, yeah, like what if going towards that is really the excitement? And when was the last time we could really get excited?
Yeah, really.
And have an exuberance and energy about us that we just love to come into our own lives every day.
When you use the word exuberance, it brings up the mantra of Access for me to share. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And glory, by definition, from Access speak anyway, is the exuberant expression of life. Just felt kind of worthwhile to say. And say that 10 times in the morning, 10 times in the evening, and your whole life can change and will change.
Yeah. So it's definitely an interesting phenomenon, or interesting that Access has these things about joy, ease, joy, and glory, and they have quite a few topics about joy. And then here's God saying that, he's not directly saying it, but essentially, if you read between the lines, that being joyful or having joy is like sort of like heaven. That's sort of the state of beingness that is of the highest.
Ooh, or to put it another way, I think this is from the Bible: being in the world but not of it. Like if you're in the world but you don't have that sense that you're not of the world, like I'm kind of losing my train of thought already.
I thought that was a shamanic thing.
What?
No. I thought that was a shamanic teaching.
Wasn't that in the Bible somewhere? I don't know.
Being of the world.
You're being in the world, but not of the world, meaning that you don't get caught up in the duality. You're in the world, but you're not getting caught up in the.
I'm not sure. I remember you've talked about that before, maybe at a different CWG meetup.
I don't know where I got that.
That we did. I've definitely heard you talk about being of the world and not in the world, but not of it. That you're, I don't know. It's a little out there for me. I don't quite play off that energy.
Well, maybe it is a shaman thing, or I don't know. I have to Google it. Let me go on a different screen. In the world, but not of quote.
Yeah. Well, I guess I know what you're saying. At the heart of it, I don't quite get, quote unquote, get that. So if you're able to explain it or provide more on it.
What does it mean to be in the world but not of it? Let's see. Oh.
In the world. We are the champions of the world.
Yeah, be in the world but not of the world is a phrase that's heard a lot in Christian subculture. It refers to what Jesus said, as recorded by one of his close friends in John chapter 15, verse 19, and John chapter 17, verses 14 through 16. So it is from the Bible.
It is biblical. Book of John.
Yeah, but I've always taken it as meaning that though we're living in the duality, and here we have the illusion of separation, and that we're separate, and that superiority exists, and that and insufficiency exists, and these are all different illusions to create context for having experience.
Mm-hmm.
Though you're in that illusion, you have the awareness of it's really we're all one, and to be able to operate in the duality from a one-ality lens or filter or lack of filter, whatever you'd like to look at it as, and which gives you a lot more ease because you're not getting caught up in the trauma and the drama.
Yeah, to me, it's sort of your being, right? I mean, you're sort of on the planet Earth, and you have a physical body, so you're kind of on the planet, in the planet. You're in the planet. You're in the planet. I like that.
Yeah.
You're sticking it to the Earth. Oh.
Or to use some access speak, while you're being me, be aware of the kingdom of we.
Yeah, it's also, you're being on the planet, and you can also see what the rest of the people on the planet are choosing, and being able to choose different. Or choose the highest, or choose
joy.
choose joy. Yeah, just joy to the world. What's the song? Isn't that how the song goes? Joy to the world.
Joy to the world. I think that's how it goes.
Yeah.
I got the love of Jesus down in my heart. That kind of feels joyful too. Maybe. Cool.
And we can sing all those Vacation Bible School songs.
So if you're watching, we got about 4 more minutes now, counting down the time. We normally go about 90 minutes here. So it's your final opportunity. If you have a question or a comment to offer a contribution or ask a question that we can speak to in our final minutes here. While we're waiting to see if someone does that, did you have any events? I know we're still kind of on lockdown and things. Is there anything going on in your world that you would want people to know about?
I guess no direct events. You and I will be on for Power Possibilities in a couple weeks. I'm still getting my stuff together and choosing what I'd like to create, so we'll find out. Nothing jumps out for me at the moment, though.
Yeah, we got a comment. Choose joy for eternity. God. And thank you very much for your continued contributions throughout our conversation. It's been a delight having you participate, and we will be back doing this for sure. Well, again, it might get bumped one more time to a Tuesday, but normally the fourth Thursday. But if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, it's in the top of the description, or you're watching on YouTube anyway. But if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll get the notifications when we go live. And for not just this, but holistic highlights or a couple other things. And if you're interested in Stir Crazy Shamans, that is something I do every day, but it's on a different channel. If you search for Stir Crazy Shamans, you'll find that, and you can subscribe and get that shaman talk that we do every day. And tomorrow's topic is energy healing.
Yeah.
Can you believe we've almost done 30 of those episodes, or about 30 already in just a short time we've been doing it? It's crazy.
You've been doing it about 30 days.
Yeah.
By my estimate.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Because, yeah. But anyway, it's been really fun.
And you haven't run out of topics. That's amazing.
We'll never run out of topics. No.
Ever?
Never, ever. Not this lifetime or the next. We'll always have something to talk about, or a different filter. And she says, or he says, I think it's a she. Thank you. I will be back. Cool.
We look forward to it.
Well, and if you go back in the archive, we have past conversations of streaming this that you can go back and look at too.
I think we've got three or four plus this one that are out there.
Yeah, and I uploaded a couple that were recorded at the center that were just a recording that I uploaded too. So we have a couple of those. And if you're on Facebook, if you Google Conversations with Consciousness, I do upload like the videos there too for.
The other thing we haven't asked, because if it would be like to do CWG more than once a month.
Ooh. Would you like to do CWG more than once a month? We can definitely, especially with the current situation, we probably could easily find extra times.
Yeah, that might be cool. I mean, we're sort of doing a weekly thing right now, so how about, we just make it, CWG 1 week and Power Possibilities the next week.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Power Possibilities is just more access focused, but there's so much overlap and cross topics that there's a lot of parallels. So no matter which, if you like Conversations with God or if you like Access, no matter which one you go to, there's a lot of crossover and you get a lot of benefit out of it. So cool. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. Please subscribe to the
Yeah.
channel; helps us out. And if you're watching on Facebook and you're going to go back and watch from the beginning, please start a watch party to get the word out. We really appreciate that too. And we will catch you next time.
Bye-bye.